Well, good morning again, everyone, and welcome back to the ladies' room for another week. I trust everyone is doing a-okay. Hope all is well, and it's always a pleasure having you here. This morning, we intend to have a really informative program, a lot of updates as to where we are with this virus, and of course, my guest has been here before, but not with me. So it's a pleasure to have him here with us today. So, we can put a different spin on it because there's a lot happening, and it's important that we, sort of decipher what's fact, what's fiction, what's real, what's not, and, because everything's making the wrong these days. And if you're not careful, there's a lot of misinformation that's around, and if one is not careful, you can get caught up in all of that. Anywho's, you know how it is with time around here, so we're not gonna stick. Let me just welcome everyone. Good morning, Andrea. Good morning, Marian. Good morning, Christelle, Keisha, Clarina. Good morning, Leno. Good morning, Carrie. I hope everyone had a blessed weekend, and looking forward to a better week wherever you are, whether in the U.S. or here at home. Doesn't matter where you are, wherever part of the globe you are, and you're hearing the sound of my voice. Welcome. Good morning, Alana. It's so nice of you guys to join us. Let me see if I can get my guest up. All right, there he is. Good morning, Gerard. How are you?
Good morning, Aruna, and good morning to all your listeners and followers. Happy New Year to everyone.
Welcome, welcome. How have you been? I mean, we speak on social media, but I haven't seen you in like years.
Well, I remain a country boy working in St. George's, and you've
Whatever.
moved from the country and you're working town and you live in town. So
How
we
do
have
you
not been
do
in a long
that?
time. Yeah,
How do you do that though? That was one of the reasons I
that's
decided, you know
fine.
what,
That's
I
fine.
need to move to town. You
We have
drive
not
every day.
we have not revoked your citizenship. Okay, so that's
Never happened. It just was too much for me every day coming over
I know,
those hills, man.
I know.
That's the job by itself. You have to like
Yeah.
brace yourself every morning and evening to make that trip. And
That's true. It's something that I'm accustomed to because I went to school at PBC, so even from a very young age, I was traveling every morning, every day. So
yeah,
it's a
so
normal
you
thing. But I do
I
understand.
I could never get accustomed to that.
Yeah.
So, of course, for those of you just joining us, you may not be familiar with my guests. So, Jared, maybe you can just take a couple minutes to just tell folks about what you do and a little bit on who you are, so we would not be doubting your credibility this morning.
All right. Well, I am an epidemiologist. I teach at the St. George's University Department of Public Health in the area of epidemiology. So I basically train students, doctors, and other public health professionals or students who come in to complete the Master of Public Health at SGU. My background typically is science. As I've said, I went to PBC, and in those days, most of us who graduated from Presentation Brothers College did not have the opportunity to do business subjects, so we naturally transitioned into science. So my background is in science, maths, physics, chem, bio. My first degree is in biology. I did a Master of Public Health at St. George's University and also have a postgraduate certificate in epidemiology that I obtained from the University of London.
Fantastic. So you're very much in a good position to speak to us this morning. You've been making the rounds, of course, with from the onset of COVID, and from the when we heard about COVID, I was one of them who thought this thing would be its origins was in China, so it's gonna stay over there. We're gonna be over here. No biggie, nothing to lose sleep over or be concerned about or stress over. And then it moved to the United States of America, and then we know what happens. When they see what happens when things reach to, the great USA, and then you still didn't take it on too much. You thought, that'll be gone in a couple of months, 2 months, 3 months max, and we move on doing what we do best. And here we are, January 10th, still talking about COVID and its many variants. Speak to us on that because a lot of people don't understand how viruses work.
Well, it's with the change in how we live and what we do and how we do it. You know that we consider the world as a global village, no longer separated by the distance. because of the nature of travel and how quickly we can get across from one point to the other. And
Mhm.
so that is one of the major factors that we find would continue to contribute to the spread of those viruses or organisms that tend to be able to be transmitted easily. It's something that with development and with modernization, it comes with the package. As we continue to do research, as we continue to go further into virgin territory, into the forests and those areas, these viruses do exist there. And so, moving into those environments, we will tend to bring it back. And some of them have been carried by animals, and they're able to jump from animals to humans. It's a challenge that we will continue to see in the future, just by the very nature of what we are doing as humans, and the fact that we travel so much more now.
Now, from our very first case, correct me if I'm wrong, I think was reported, or first confirmed case of COVID was reported on March 22nd, 2020, or thereabouts.
Yes.
And to date, the 8th of January, I've not seen any latest updates. The 8th of January, our active cases, the last one I saw, we were at 1,764
Yeah,
with
that's correct. Yes.
yeah. So from 2020 to now, for the most part, we were spared the brunt of it. When we were seeing other countries, even neighboring islands, in the hundreds and going up, we were bouncing around and, below 20. And, for the most part, we are going about life as normal, nothing to worry about. And then, of course, September, we got what we really termed our first wave. Now, here we are now. We're in January. It's what, the 10th? And
Yes. Yes.
since then, we've had Delta, we've had Omicron, or I'm seeing something called Delta and Omicron. Listen, how do these viruses mesh? How do they develop? How do they get to from one place to another to become these variants?
It's quite amazing, Aruna. These pathogens are always seeking to survive. And if we look at the first strain to the point where we are now with the Omicron, we would have seen a pattern developing in that they're becoming more infectious. So when we got the Delta variant, it was more infectious than the first strain that we saw. But the difference was that the Delta variant was causing more deaths. And that is not good for the survival of an organism or pathogen, because if the host continues to die, and a lot of the host is dying, then it means that the virus is going to die out eventually. And
Mhm.
so that mutation that occurred from the Delta variant to the Omicron is one of survival. And what we are seeing now, it is less deadly. However, it is more infectious. So it means that it can spread easily. Hosts are surviving, so that guarantees the survival of the virus within the human population. And it's quite amazing how these things operate. And it's just a survival method. So what we are seeing here is the change of that virus for it to remain within the human population. It is appearing, and it will be, the virus would remain as endemic in most populations throughout the globe.
Is it in Cyprus? They're talking about this Delta Cron variant, a combination of Delta and Omicron. Because if you're saying that the Delta is deadlier and the Omicron spreads quicker, and when you combine a deadly and a super spreader, what are we talking about here?
Well, there is always the unknown factor that it could get more lethal.
Mhm.
But in my experience and looking at what has happened with pandemics and pathogens, it always mutates to a form where it gets less lethal over time. And that guarantees the survival. So things like the flu, etc., you find mutations occurring whilst it causes some distress and it causes illness. Some individuals may die at times depending on underlying conditions or the how quickly you seek medical attention or your immunity levels, etc. But when we look at virus and the mutations, especially in pandemics, over time the strains that develop are such that guarantees survival of the virus within the human population. And I believe that's what's happening. So whilst looking at a combination of two might seem deadlier, it is possible, but evidence does not show that to this point.
Okay, no, there's a word, and I've been saying this last week. I'm not sure if saying that the Omicron is less deadly or less dangerous or whatever term that we've been using um, puts people at I sort of it sort of puts people at a comfort level to me that is uncomfortable, because from the 1st of January, on Monday, that was what, the first, second, third. On Monday, we started seeing 200, 300, 100. And, before that, you were just, in the little two, three, four, five. And of course, since we heard about this Omicron, we've just seen the numbers every day just getting higher and higher. And, some are saying, well, there isn't much hospitalization, but based on what I've been reading around the world, there are people hospitalized. It's just not here, but there are people hospitalized as a result of this new variant. The numbers are higher. People are sick. People are all over. And to me, it gives a level of comfort when we say that it's not as bad as
Well,
some
and
way.
that is true. That is true, Aruna. And we should not think that because so far the Omicron has not caused any deaths in Grenada or as much deaths as the Delta variant, that we need to
There's one death
get
reported yesterday.
comfortable
There's one
and
death.
not exercise the protocols or established protocols that seem to work. I'm not surprised that we've seen those numbers now. I did say to some of my friends that we're going to start seeing now increased numbers in January as a result of the relaxed restrictions and the festive seasons, together with the fact that we are not very responsible citizens and we do not always adhere to the protocols that we know would guarantee a decrease in transmission. And so, what we are seeing here now are the effects of the infections that would have occurred during the festive season. One thing I would like to point out, Aruna, we should not continue to give the virus an opportunity to spread because there is always a potential for mutation when the virus continues to multiply and spread from host to host. And we do not know when a lethal strain is going to develop. I mean, the trends show over time that usually pathogens get less lethal over time. However, it may happen within a specific population or nation that, as a result of multiplication and mutations, that we get a very lethal strain in a specific area that is localized. So we should not think because there is a general consensus and evidence is showing that the Omicron virus is not causing that great impact in terms of health and mortality, that we behave as if then let's go spread it as a common cold. No, because there is always a potential with the spread and multiplication of the virus to survive. The potential for mutation is ever present.
There's one related death though. Yesterday, I think there's one death, COVID related death. Yesterday, like you said, they have not sent out the updated bill board as yet.
Bill,
So
yes, yeah,
yes,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we're waiting,
Okay.
dashboard. Sorry, so we are waiting that. But there's one death, one confirmed death, COVID related death yesterday. But in terms of you speak on we should not promote, we should not do this, or we should not do that. As it is, from the onset, we've had this hesitancy relating to vaccines, and I don't think over time, what we've been seeing has helped in, convincing people to be vaccinated. Now we have the washing of hands, the distancing. That is another story. It's like pulling teeth to get people to do that. Wearing of the mask, and how do all these factors combined help prevent the spread? Because one, I see people with these blue little disposable masks, and you could just blow through it. And then there was a test they say you can do put the matchstick and talk or blow through it, and if it extinguishes the flame, that means you're not getting much protection.
Yeah.
So the people are just putting on a mask or putting on a mask sake. But if you're not wearing the correct mask, if you're just putting on and just pick up a piece of cloth and you put it on, or those disposable ones, how much protection are you getting? Yes, you're wearing a mask, but are you really protected by the wearing of that mask?
Well, yeah, and we have, we have masks that are more effective than others. And initially, we thought just wearing a mask would have been enough protection, but we found over time that we need at least a double coated mask. Or even I read an article yesterday that is suggesting those with three layers that definitely would prevent any of the pathogen getting through to your mouth or to your nostrils. And so this is a sort of education now that we need, because the initial response was to just wear a mask. That's when we were having our first experience. Now that we're learning that we need to step up the quality of the mask, then the education to the population needs to be ongoing so that we can continue to be sensitized about what is the best practice towards preventing the spread of COVID-19. A big concern is the reopening of schools. Will the kids be wearing the proper mask? And we know kids, how they interact with each other. So these are concerns, yes, that we have. And I'm saying again that the re-education to continue with the continued sensitization of the population is necessary, because if we are in our second wave. It may last a couple of weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, before we start to see the numbers subsiding. And the numbers that we are seeing is just percentages of who we are testing. There are many other cases that we are not
I'm not
testing,
testing.
that don't report, etc. And so we are not sure how much is out there. So that continues to spread, and so we would continue to see those numbers over time if we do not tighten up those behaviors that would prevent it from spreading.
Now, I want to jump on the vaccine part of it, because when we started, we were told, well, vaccine is the answer, vaccination is the answer. Then we had your first dose, then you have to take a second dose to be considered fully vaccinated. And now we're hearing about boosters. And there are people saying, quite frankly, you know what? I'm not taking any booster anymore. I'm not doing anything. I've had my 2 shots. That's it. Because from what I'm seeing, it doesn't seem to be helping much in terms of prevention or whatever. So we're hearing a first booster, second booster. So folks are asking, well, how many more boosters do we need to get this to feel like I'm in a comfortable place where I can, okay, I'm fully vaccinated and I'll be good over here. What
Um,
is,
you know,
how do
at
we
this,
get people to
yeah,
make that thinking?
sorry, at this point, Aaron, the science cannot say specifically when or if we're going to get to a level where one shot works. And it seems to be trending in the direction of the flu. Every annually in the US, this population is required or expected to take a flu shot. So it seems to be trending in that direction. So I would say, as of this point, I don't think we would have a one shot, a one off vaccine that would provide you with immunity for many years. They would continue to require boosters, and that's what the trend looks like. And some of those pathogens tend to be that elusive, in that the immunity once exposed to a vaccine does not guarantee full protection with extended periods.
I've seen a couple comments here. Let me just share them. Someone here is saying, Best Babs is saying, how feasible is the advice of the Ministry of Health to quarantine fully vaxxed less days than unvaxxed? Does the virus last less in a fully vaxxed than in an unvaxxed? Or does the fact that you can get it fully vaxxed means there's no difference?
There is a difference in that the viral loads in the vax individuals seem to be lower, and the infectiousness, as a result of that, infectiousness seem to be a lot less. But these can vary, and again, it can vary from individual to individual. So there should be a range within which we ought to operate. I personally don't agree with having a different time for isolation for vax or unvax, because we do not know exactly. It isn't a black and white line. It's a lot of gray lines that we tend to be trying to figure out at this point. And I would say, for safety, that there is a standard isolation period for vaxxers or unvaccinated individuals. I think that's the best way we can move forward because it has been proven that vaccinated individuals can also transmit the virus to other individuals. Just that the protection guaranteed from the vaccine is that you would be less sick and the likelihood of you dying is greatly reduced. There isn't a guarantee to say that a vaccinated individual would not transmit or cannot catch the virus as well. And so that's the sort of education that we need to know. Getting vaxxed is protecting you from extreme illness or death, and especially if you have underlying conditions. But it doesn't protect you from catching it. And if you do catch it, then you can still transmit, but you're not as infectious as somebody who is not vaccinated.
I think the some of the vaccinations, there was, I say, there are pros and cons to being vaccinated, and some of the one of the thing is that if you're vaxxed, there's an advantage to being vaccinated because, for instance, you cannot go sit in. And I don't understand this, but anyways, you can't go sit in a restaurant or in an area unless you present your vaccination card. And somebody who is not vaccinated, um, they can't enter those places. And I've heard people say to me, you know what, I didn't get vaccinated because I believe in it or I wanted to. I did it because I don't want to be in my house 24/7. I want to be able to go out and hang with my friends, go sit at my
Yeah.
favorite spot and chill and eat and what have you, without stressing about it, or go to a function that is advertised for vaccinated people only. So a lot of folks seem to have gotten vaccinated on those premises, and not because of they believe in what vaccination can do. Now, how looking ahead, because like we said, this thing doesn't look as though it's going anywhere anytime soon, and there's a still wide margin when it comes to unvaccinated folks and who don't believe in the vaccination. So how do we get to that point and
Um,
everybody treated equally?
that would be in time, Aruna, and I believe the response now on the requirements for the vaccines to visit many spots and areas is as a result of the pandemic and the impacts it had on us in the near past, not too distant past. And so this we have to understand the context of it and the response that public health would be required to give in an experience like a pandemic. I don't foresee this requirement remaining forever, but it is going to remain until the pandemic is downgraded to just isolated epidemics or being endemic in most populations. For the time being, it's something that we'll have to live with, where the requirements is they're put in place such that we slow down and in slowing down we're able to downgrade from a pandemic to isolated epidemics within populations that have susceptible individuals, and then eventually it's going to become endemic like dengue or any one of the other diseases that exist naturally within our environments. By that time we'll have enough individuals who have built up some level of immunity. Even though immunity wanes over time, having been vaccinated or been infected produces some immunity, whether it wanes over time. The fact is, if you're exposed to the pathogen in the future, your body is going to be able to respond faster. And that is key. If your body can give an immune response faster, then that automatically reduces the risk of severe illness and death. And so, with time, the percentage of individuals who can respond when exposed is going to increase. And once it gets to that levels, then you'll find that the potential for outbreaks are going to continue to decrease with time. And I would say over time, we would return to some form of normalcy where those restrictions for vaccines to enter certain places would be removed eventually. But until then, we'll have to work with that.
Okay. Someone here say, they want to get your thoughts on the reopening of schools, seeing that you mentioned, of course, children and going back into the classroom and they themselves. And we're talking protocols, and you can't ask a 5 and a 3-year-old to follow no protocol when they're amongst the little friends in the daycare or in the classroom. Probably unless you have a teacher per child to police them every minute to say don't touch, to stay away, stay. How do you get 3 and 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds to social distance? So your thoughts on that, someone is asking.
It's I honestly support the reopening of schools, and I would need to make myself very clear.
Okay, let's hear you.
I support it because I believe it's good for the mental health of the kids.
Mhm.
I think they've been isolated from their friends and just an environment where they can express themselves some more outside of home. But what we've seen in many countries, developed countries, that the school environment can be a really protected area where transmission is very low. Once there are established resources and protocols that we allow the kids or we ensure that the kids follow. So the hand sanitization, the wearing of the mask properly at all times, and when as much as possible the social distancing, because as you rightly said, it is difficult to keep the kids away from each other. So what we've seen is like 0.9, 0.7% infection rates in many countries when those environments with the established protocols were established and monitored properly. However, on the flip side, when there wasn't monitored and when there was a lax in wearing of masks, and we had kids in air-conditioned rooms with all the free-flowing fresh air, and they were not wearing masks and not sanitizing their hands properly, the infection rates went up to 13 and 16%. So that's like 1,300 or 1,600% more than what we were seeing in the protected environment. So, and that is good. My concern is whether or not we are ready or prepared to have those protected environments within the schools so that the kids can go out to school, enjoy themselves in the school environment, and still not have high infection rates. So I'm not sure if that has been put in place, but I do hope that the Ministry of Education has looked at the results of those studies across globally that seems to suggest the school environment is not an environment that contributes to large infection rates once we have those protected behaviors and monitoring of it properly, such that even among teachers, so the teachers and the students, the infection rates were very low, on lower than 1%, and that's quite interesting. My concern is the fact that we tend not to be forward thinking. So we might think about just reopening the schools, but not think about how do we create a bubble within the school such that the infection is minimized. And so that's my biggest concern. But I support fully the kids going back to school. Kids are asking when school is going to be reopened. And I believe that if we do not listen to them, we're going to see a lot of health outcomes that are related to being at home and locked in so much, and we might see those being acted out in behaviors and outcomes that we would not be prepared to accept.
And not only that, in terms of, if we were to look at where our children are, there are a lot of falling behind, because for one, of course, with the virtual learning, not every child has access to the internet. Not every child has, study service that they can use 24/7 or be in the classrooms. I've heard of teachers complaining since the start of, the virtual, they've not seen certain students at all when they do their checks to see who's present, who's online. They have not seen any of them, and when contacting the parents, it's like, well, we don't have internet or we don't have this. So how do we join this? So children are falling way behind. And, there are children who are in the exit classes, are just doing barely enough to get through, and then they leave. And what's going on with those behind?
Yeah, and again, the disparities would continue to increase between the students who have access to the online learning compared to those who do not have access. And that should be a major cause for concern. And I do hope that the Ministry of Education would have thought about remedial programs for the kids who fell behind by maybe more than a term. I have had to sit with my son who has just entered SAS, and it's difficult for the kids to learn online. It's a challenge because just, you know, using your laptop and being able to maneuver from one point to the next, do assignments, get back, attend classes, take a break, catch up with your writing of your notes. It's like a whole day work even if it's a shortened day. And he complains that he's tired at the end of the day. So, and he has me with him most days
Mentally tired.
on
Hmm.
vacation. I stay with him, and sit with him, and get it done. But there are some kids who have no one to help them through, to answer their questions, to even ask questions for them, because sometimes they're too shy to ask the teachers questions on the chats. So these are really issues, and I do hope that the Ministry of Education has a remedial program planned for the kids who have missed so much school and are not returning to school, even if it's one day per week, to be able to catch up, because the kids who are ahead would continue to move ahead, and those who are behind would fall further behind, because it's very frustrating if you're way behind and you're not understanding what's been done, and you have no help. These again can be acted out in negative behaviors.
I think I have a caller online. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, morning.
Happy New Year to you and your guest.
Thanks so much.
Okay, so I have a question.
You hearing Gerard?
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
hearing. It's breaking up a bit, but I'm hearing. Yeah.
I,
Okay.
I had a question. I was, and then I went forward. That question is very. There I go. Um, this is for your guest, right? With my question is, the person who are vaccinated, when they get infected or vaccinated, right? And the virus is
You're breaking up really badly.
Yes, yes, he's breaking up.
I'm not hearing you
are you
clearly at
are you
all.
hearing me better?
Yes, no.
Yes.
Yes. So my question is, let's say you have a vaccinated person, and that person gets infected. Um, the virus is in them. Would you say that the reasons that we get in so much different variants is that the virus was under so much pressure in this vaccinated person that when it now goes into an unvaccinated person, so there's a transmission from a vaccinated to an unvaccinated, it increases the virus ability to want to change because the environment is so weaker than the environment it wasn't previously. Because it's sort of strange that so much variance are coming in such short time. And I'm just um because of that,
Well, it's,
it 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 encourages it, as Aruna said this morning. There's now a combination between two variants. Thank you.
Alrighty. Yeah, your thought?
yes, well, I'm not sure if there is more pressure on the virus or the pathogen in vaccinated individuals, because one, the likelihood of the transmission rates from vaccinated individuals to other individuals is much lower. So we have less multiplication, smaller viral loads. So the potential for mutation is much less. So I'm not going to discriminate and say, we have proven that, either of the two groups contribute greater to the formation of a new variant. What I do know that the chances of a mutation increases once there are more chances to multiply and to move from host to host. And so once we encourage transmission, the virus is seeking to survive. And if we are hunting it down, it's seeking to survive. And that's what we've been doing. And so we're chasing it down, and it's multiplying, moving from host to host. And as a result, in that multiplication to find new hosts and to survive, we have those variants being formed. So I cannot say that we have, or speculate that vaccinated individuals put more pressure on a virus to survive. So that's the reason why it would mutate to form a new variant.
I know you hear so many different things.
Yeah,
Like you said, that's why you have to be careful, where you're
yeah,
getting your
yeah.
information from, of course, your sources and all of that. Because there's a lot out there. And at one point, I'm like, you know what? I'm done reading. I'm done. There's certain places you just have to be very careful where you get information from, because it can really do your head in. Now, from You were saying, go ahead.
Yeah, it is important. I just want to reiterate and support what you're saying. It is important that you sometimes do some investigation. Last year, I looked at a video, Aruna, that was circulating on social media about the cases and vaccinations. And when I listened to the video, I was convinced it was the truth. I was convinced. But the science part in me decided, let me investigate. So I went on to the particular country that a video was made on and investigated, got data and statistics, and it was so wrong. The data that existed compared to the data from the video was so different and incorrect that I mean I just had to sit back and smile and say, see, if I didn't look, I was going
You
to be
just shared.
convinced. Yes, I was going to be convinced because it convinced me. I just went a little bit further to see, well, let me see how true that is. And it was very convincing. So that's things we have to be careful. And we've been given an independent mind, and not everything that comes to us we need to accept and believe. We can investigate, get more information, ask individuals for if they have any information, and read up some more because the information is out there. The misleading information is there. The correct information is there. We just need to find it
You just
and
have to
make
find a
our decision.
balance and
Yes.
check your sources before you start because we're so quick to see when we see something, hit the share button. And when you see thousands of shares on something and then you check and you're like, wow, look at
Yes.
me. I'm one of the gullible ones. I actually believe this. But of course, before we go though, like you said, we are experiencing the Omicron variant now, and which is spreading rapidly. From what sort of advice would you give though to sort of control, if that is the best word to use, the spread of it? What can we do now, seeing that it's already out there? What can we do now to control further outbreaks?
Yeah, I always have said that the government can do so much, but we as the people can do so much more because
Hmm.
it's 103 or 104,000 of us minus the government. And if we decide to, each one of us decide to take our responsibility in controlling the spread or preventing the spread, then definitely we would have some measure of control in slowing down the current rates of transmission. And so I want to reiterate the proper wearing of masks, sanitizing your hands, and social distancing is something that I think we are getting there with in terms of the social distancing, but at times we get carried away, especially in social events. You would see individuals, still not wearing a mask, etc. I do understand that, but just being sensitive to it is very important, and reminding yourself constantly that these are the things that we can do as individuals, and whether or not you're vaccinated or you're unvaccinated, we can continue to move forward with the fight against the Omicron. It's very infectious, and so we have to also bring the kids in, talk to them about it. We have to be more observant. If the kids come down with flu-like symptoms, we should not send them to school. Parents ought to, take their responsibility as well. Teachers ought to be very vigilant with that and making sure that we can identify kids with flu symptoms if they're not feeling well, isolate them, contact their parents, make sure that they get home safely, even help give advice to how we can isolate kids, etc. These are things that everyone needs to come on board with to educate yourselves well enough to be able to share with someone, talk to a younger kid, and just be able to pass the correct information on. Everyone may not want to accept it, but I'm sure some individuals would be happy for the reminders, because it's important as a nation that we are very conscious of the fact that this is going to be here with us for a longer time if we do not bit by bit fight it by doing the correct things. And so I would say, and I hope that by the time the third wave comes around, we have more individuals who are
Oh,
who are
Jesus. So,
immune, and so
still.
less individuals susceptible. So the impact on the population is a lot less as we move forward with the waves as they come. Some countries are on the third and fourth wave. We are on the second, so we're still behind. And it's a sort of a guarantee that's going to be coming. Each time it comes, the susceptible populations will be attacked. And so it's important that we work on those things like building our immune system, making sure that we exercise, we eat properly. And those things are very important because at the end of the day, we depend on our immune system to deal with the pathogens and the foreign bodies that come into our system to be able to deal with it and to deal with it in such a way that we do not get ill.
Wonderful and sound advice indeed. Well, I hope we can call on you next time. We can call on you again because we need to continue the education process. Because, like you said, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you don't want just want to be preaching doom and gloom all the time. You want to make sure that folks are in the know when it comes to the viruses and how it works, and of course, like you said, we're gonna have different ones over time, so we just have to be prepared. And if you keep that in mind all the time, we will definitely be in a better place, because I'm telling you, just was it 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, started having symptoms, and automatically I went into full panic mode, and I'm like, I did almost 3 tests to make sure,
Just to make sure.
to make sure.
But it's good. It's good. It's
So
good that you're empowered enough to take action. Some people don't. They operate as normal even if they feel those symptoms, and they can be spreading it in the meantime.
the
So that's
paranoia,
good.
because the thing
Yeah.
is, when you look when I listen to friends who've had this, and even the long term effects like long COVID, and even though it's gone, some are saying to me, listen, if you think COVID is bad, after is even worse, because I'm still feeling pain in my joints. I still have short of breath. I can't walk for long. I can't exercise for too long. My chest gets tight. I'm still getting headaches. I'm still getting pain in my in my limbs. So it's
Yeah.
not just getting it, but after, so that is one thing that keeps me on my p's and q's where that is concerned. So a little sniffle, and I'm like, no, I'm getting, you can't even sneeze peacefully anymore. Slightest sign, this could be COVID, let me check this out. And there are people who are just dismissing it as okay, probably just the flu, so or just a little cold, and diagnosing themselves and not going to get tested. So every time somebody goes to get tested, there's probably five more or six more who
Yeah.
have the same symptoms and are not getting tested. So what we're seeing are the numbers who go to get tested, but what about those who haven't, who are amongst us, who are on the jobs, who are out hanging with us? So those are the things I think that we have to take into consideration. And like you said, it's all about personal responsibility. We can't depend on the 15 people in parliament to do it. We have to be responsible for our lives and of course our children and family. So I hope that over time, if we all do that, we'll be in a better position. But thank you again. Appreciate you as always.
Thank you, Aruna. I'm running off to get my booster shot.
I'm right behind you. Have a good one. Thanks so much.
Yeah, all right. Have a good
Of
day,
course.
and
All right, bye-bye.
thank you to all your listeners.
You are so welcome.
All right.
Alrighty, folks. So tomorrow, God's will, the Minister of Education will be here, Honorable Emily Pear. She will be here tomorrow. So hope you guys will come back. If you have questions, you can shoot them, and of course, I'll pass it along to her. So looking forward to having you back in the room tomorrow. Thank you so much, Beacon Insurance, Western Union, and Escoma Variety Store. Um, for making our ladies' room possible for today. So, a reminder, tomorrow, the Minister of Education, Honorable Emily Pear, will be our guest inside the ladies' room. So, looking forward to seeing you back here again. Alrighty. So, thanks so much, everyone.